Hey, hey, hey. Happy Wednesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard. Tonight is Wednesday, April 5th, 2023. This is live stream 906. If you're not overly familiar with how this show works, super casual around here, just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and normally we'll take a first look at a game. So it's not rocket surgery taking place by any stretch of the imagination, just hanging out, having some fun. So, tonight will be no different. It is a War Game Wednesday, though. Yes, it's a War Game Wednesday. And I will be diving on in for a first look at the Battle of White Plains from GMT Games. And this is a pretty hefty box. So, we will be diving on in to take a look at the 10th entry in the Battles of the American Revolution line from GMT Games. Of course, if you are popping on in to see the live unboxing, please keep in mind we tackle the tabletop gaming news first. So if you are hanging out, put your feet up, relax, enjoy yourself. It's hump day. It's halfway to the weekend. And if you happen to be a subscriber to the channel, you'll have something else you can occupy your time with. Talk about that in just a moment. But it'll probably be about 35, maybe 40 minutes before we get on into that live unboxing. So please keep that in mind. Now, if you happen to be watching this 30 minutes or more after the show ends, there will be timestamps. So if you are tuning in then, you'll be able to jump ahead if you would like. If you're impatient and you just gotta see what's in this box. Of course, those timestamps will be in the show notes, or depending on the device you happen to be watching this on, might be right there in the timeline in front of you. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live stream, so that means there is chat available. Chat's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours before you can take part in chat. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you've got a question, a comment, maybe there's something you want to get a closer look at in the Battle of White Plains, chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is one of our chat moderators, the Motor City Madman himself. Yes, the Madman is with us, as is Chuck Terrell, Agent Especial, Kevin R. Smith, Sarah D., another of our chat moderators, who is saying she's got her fingers crossed that the power doesn't go out midstream again. That happened to me. I think it's happened twice that I've been doing shows and the power went out. Kathy Evans is with us, as is Deja Vu. So, got a nice chat off and running right now. So there is some discussion of the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Deja Vu's asking who has seen it, what they thought of it. I was thinking of maybe going and seeing it this weekend or maybe tomorrow. So I'm kind of bouncing that around a little bit. I got to take a look to see if it's out by me, because I don't have a lot of theaters nearby where I live. So I'll have to take a quick peek. So Agent Especial is mentioning that they had their first casualty in Beyond the Mountains of Madness, the Call of Cthulhu campaign, although it's taken 2 years before they've lost their first investigator. That's kind of wild. Kevin's pointing out that they've got a tornado watch going on. Sarah points out their power went out for 26 hours Friday into Saturday and for about 8 hours last night. Ouch. Yikes. Totally uncool. All right, so let's jump on into the news, because I've got a nice eclectic mix as usual. Following a successful Kickstarter and some delays, Vampire the Masquerade Chapters is finally set to arrive from Flyos Games, or it's Flyos Games? I don't know. It's Flyos. Flyos sounds odd. I would think it's Flyos Games. Anyway, regardless, here's the skinny. Vampire the Masquerade Chapters is a campaign game which includes, as part of the rich narrative and story arc, many immersive scenarios that adapt to your playing style. Depending on your approach and decisions, you will impact the story and experience a custom adventure. As in RPG in a box, better than other things in a box, you'll experience advanced dialogue possibilities, deep investigation sequences, and powerful combats. No game master is required. Choose your character, make your decisions, gain experience points, and level up over time. Vampire the Masquerade Chapters is set in Montreal after the fall of the Sabbat. An old threat looms from the underground and leads you to an epic hunt through the city of Black Faith. The game is a mature and visceral experience based on several branching mechanisms. Your decisions in the game may have consequences, good or bad. The difference is thin in the world of darkness. All along the campaign, your status and masquerade level will be tracked, influencing the course of your experience. Fully replayable, the story can be played again from different angles with new characters and different choices. Vampire the Masquerade Chapters is for 1 to 4 players, ages 18 and up, plays in around 30 minutes per player per chapter. And I believe this has 45 scenarios contained within. So probably going to take a good long while to wrap this up, which I would hope it would, because it carries an MSRP of $169. It is going to land in stores this May. This is not something I was familiar with, to be very honest. Normally don't see Vampire the Masquerade games from outside, say, White Wolf, which now I don't even know if they go by White Wolf anymore. I think now it's just World of Darkness. And of course, Renegade Game Studios. So kind of interesting, I should say. And looks like we've got some miniatures involved. Looks like there's quite a bit there. Although I gotta say, I don't know, it better have a lot of play for what is effectively $170. Yowza! Disavowed 92 is with us in chat. Moving right along, 25th Century Games is now taking orders for the deluxe edition and the regular edition of Ra from designer Reiner Knizia. Here's the latest. Invoke the power of the sun god. Take on the role of a line of ancient Egyptian kings ruling over your vast kingdoms. You will work to improve the culture of Egypt and the strength of your royal lineage, all while following the will of the gods. Time is limited, so you must wisely decide how to spend your days. In the end, will you have pleased the gods enough to move on to the field of reeds in the afterlife? One of Reiner Knizia's most loved games, Ra is a classic auction game for 2 to 5 players, now in a new edition with revised artwork and deluxe components. Ra is for 2 to 5 players, ages 12 and up, plays in around 45 to 60 minutes. The standard edition, which I am not sharing images of, this is all from the deluxe edition, but the standard edition carries an MSRP of $50, while the deluxe edition's MSRP is $90. That better be some real gold we're taking a look at there. The deluxe and standard retail editions are going to arrive in May. Disavowed92 says this is a great, great auction game. I'll be honest, I've never played it. I have not played it. So, don't know. I don't know. I'll be the first to point out I am not exactly the biggest Reiner Knizia fan. If you have followed the gaming gang since the beginning, I mean, I don't have anything against him. It's just, thankfully, the past few years, he has started to work on new designs. But there was a period of time where all we were seeing from Reiner Knizia was just reskinned old games. And a lot of his games have themes, but they really have no effect on the game whatsoever. So, very easy to reskin them. And we were seeing a lot of that taking place. Speaking of game designers, I'm sure many of you have already seen that Klaus Teuber, the designer of Settlers of Catan, has passed away. I guess he passed away yesterday. And I was sorry to hear that. Always sorry to hear when anybody in the industry, or actually anybody, period, passes away. I gotta say, and this is absolutely nothing against Mr. Teuber, I'm not a fan of Settlers of Catan. I think I've mentioned this before. I have played it 5 times, and I feel that it's like one of the most overhyped board games out there. It's just, I don't know. It's probably because I like theme in my games. I like story. I'm an Ameritrash kind of guy, which I hate that term. I always say American styled. But you know what I mean when I say Ameritrash. I grew up with those kind of games, so that's kind of where I sit. But sorry to hear that Klaus Teuber did pass away yesterday at the age of 70. Let's talk about some role-playing game news, because the 24th entry into Goodman Games' 5th edition fantasy has arrived. Here's what I know about the Prism of Redemption. It's a level 12 adventure for 5e. Lady Lita Adelhorn is a fallen celestial imprisoned in her ancestral estate on the peak of Mount Ontar. Heroes are summoned to assist with her redemption by gathering numerous sacred gems to power an enchanted scepter. With the scepter fully restored, Lady Adelhorn can finally confront an evil dragon and regain favor with her deity, the Father of Dragons. It's a race against time and a planar journey to collect the gems before it's too late. Infinity Stones, anyone? But can the heroes overcome a fallen celestial's pride and arrogance and win the day? The Prism of Redemption is an all-new 5th edition dungeon crawl adventure suitable for a group of 4 to 6 12th level characters. This adventure features planar hopping through a series of magical mirrors, facing a series of boss battles highlighting the unique rules of 5th edition play. This adventure was originally a 2-round team tournament held in 2021 and includes the original scoring system to recreate a team competition. The adventure also contains an alternate start presented for classical campaign play without the trappings of tournament play. The 64-page softcover with PDF is available from Goodman Games for $17.99. Or if you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $11.99. I am always kind of curious if the Goodman Games 5th edition fantasy adventures have that same old school vibe as, say, the Dungeon Crawl Classics adventures, because I've actually never had a peek at any of the 5th edition fantasy adventures, although it wasn't that long ago. There was a really pretty sweet bundle that was out there that was pretty cheap to pick up. I think up to like number 21 or something like that. But I am kind of curious because looking at the images, we can see that the art style and the map style is pretty much in line with old school essentials, or I shouldn't say old school essentials, Dungeon Crawl Classics. I said old school essentials because that's my next news piece. Getting ahead of myself. So kind of cool. I will have something to say about Goodman Games right after we wrap up the news. Moving right along, the 3rd issue of Carcass Crawler is now available for, yes, you guessed it, Old School Essentials. Here's the scoop from Necrotic Gnome. The 3rd issue of Carcass Crawler, the official Old School Essentials zine, is now available. Each issue is packed with new material for your games, including new character classes and races, new spells and magic items, new monsters, optional and expanded rules, referee advice, previews of in-development products, short adventures, and more. In this issue, you're going to find 5 new character classes: the Beastmaster, the Dragonborn, the Mutoid, the Mycelian, and the Tiefling. There are 5 new character races for advanced fantasy games: the Dragonborn, the Mutoid, the Mycelian, and, what do you think? The Tiefling? Yes. There's more adventuring gear, weapons, and armor to increase adventuring options and character customization. 8 brand new monsters that lurk in the deep, shadowed glades and sacred groves of ancient forests beyond the reach of civilization. Referee guidelines for creating new monsters for Old School Essentials games. Keep the game fresh and your players on their toes by devising your own new horrors and foes. A staple-bound softcover edition of this zine plus PDF is available from Exalted Funeral, along with all of the other books in the Old School's Essentials line here in the US. So, Exalted Funeral is kind of the official distributor for Old School Essentials. Now, you can get the 32-page digest-sized zine through Exalted Funeral with the PDF for $10. Or if you want to just grab the PDF alone, you can do so at Drive-Thru RPG for $7.50. Do want to mention the images that I'm showing outside of this new cover for issue 3 are from previous issues of Carcass Crawler because I wasn't able to find any interiors from this issue, but they're all pretty similar in style, so they also have the same style as Old School Essentials. So kind of cool. I had an opportunity to take a peek at the first issue of Carcass Crawler, and I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty cool. Had some good, useful content for either just classic fantasy OSE or advanced fantasy OSE. All right, on to the final news piece. Anvil Studios has released a jumpstart to introduce their Knights Arcanum Savage World setting. Yes, was that the madman's ears perking up that I just heard from hundreds of miles away? Here's what I know about the Spider and the Scholar. The Spider and the Scholar is a jumpstart for Knights Arcanum, a setting for Savage Worlds. This booklet serves as an introduction to a world of superheroic mana-punk fantasy, where magically powered trains and airships travel between floating island kingdoms that are menaced by demon hordes intent on claiming the world for themselves. The people of these kingdoms rely on the protection of the Knights Arcanum, singularly powerful guardians imbued with special powers. However, since the death of the Emperor, the kingdoms have been divided by strife and unrest. Villains scheme to take wealth and power wherever they can. Cults spring up in the undercities, and vile netherites oppose any who would seek unity. In the world of Caber, the Knights Arcanum are needed more than ever. In this jumpstart adventure, you'll find the Storm Riders, a group of 5 pre-generated Knights Arcanum, ready to play. The heroes are called to escort a young scholar who has unearthed an important relic of the past. The scholar and the orb he discovered are traveling on one of the wondrous airships that sail the skies between islands, intending to deliver his prize to the Imperial University. The Widow Queen, a sinister netherlord, also desires this relic, and she has brought with her some of her own cultist henchmen to take the relic for herself. Her schemes put the airship at risk, as well as the lives of everyone on board. Can the Knights Arcanum find a way to keep the airship flying and foil the Widow Queen's plan? The Spider and the Scholar includes 5 pre-generated characters, a gazetteer of the world of Caber, and the adventure. This jumpstart does require the Savage Worlds Adventurers Edition and the Savage Worlds Superpowers Companion in order to play. The 24-page Knights Arcanum Jumpstart PDF is available for a single solitary $1 over at Drive-Thru RPG. Sounds kind of interesting. And I gotta say, I definitely like the artwork on the cover. I think the cover artwork's pretty cool. And this almost has a Mars Attacks vibe to it with the exposed brain in the, it looks like it's within like a helmet or something. So the madman says that brain creature looks like a zombie smorgasbord to him. Of course, he was like, Savage Worlds, what? Ooh, candy. Ooh, candy. Ooh, candy. So I thought I'd share this with you. You know how I enjoy sharing small publishers and what they've got cooking. So that is from Anvil Studios, Knights Arcanum. It is a jumpstart. I don't think they have their actual setting book ready yet. Coco B says, time for a RoboCop comment. I'll buy that for $1. Yes. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang Thus, the Dispatch is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I will get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always swing on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang and making a small donation. And thankfully, there are quite a few people out there who use our banner ads and or visit paypal.me. So big tip of the cap to all of you out there who do that. Madman says, Knights Arcanum, gonna have to look into that further, especially for $1. Figure there's probably things that you can crib. That's how I look at things all the time. Talk about it all the time with role-playing games. Good game masters crib from all over the place. You notice how I say crib, not steal? Game masters don't steal from other game systems. They crib things from other game systems. So, as I mentioned, I was going to tell you something about Goodman Games. So I guess they want to get on board with the Gaming Gang. So they are going to be sending a copy of the Dying Earth box set for me to share coverage of and do a review of as well. So I'm like, cool, sweet. So that would be, let's see, isn't that the third set from Goodman Games for kind of like classic sword and sorcery fantasy? Because we've got, obviously enough, the Fritz Leiber Lankmar line, which I think they've already got like 10 or 11 adventures, 2 box sets, because they have the Lankmar box set, and then they have, I think it's the Greatest Thieves in the World, or Greatest Thieves in Lankmar is a box set. Then we have Empires of the East, which is Fred Saberhagen, if I remember correctly. I think. And then, of course, The Dying Earth, which is, I think, now just available, I think as of today or yesterday, to be able to order. I almost did a news piece on that, but the news actually broke after I'd finished doing my news for today. But that, of course, obviously enough, is based on the Dying Earth stories of Jack Vance, which is where we get our Vancian magic for Dungeons and Dragons. So that is where, well, I wouldn't say it's exact, but it is the inspiration for the magic system of D&D going all the way back to the beginning. So kind of cool. We're going to get to see that. Madman says, wow, haven't heard Fred Saberhagen's name in a long time, or a while, I guess I should say. Shouldn't put words into the madman's mouth or fingertips. Had read several of his books years ago. Let's see, Fred Saberhagen, you know, and the funny thing is, I know a lot of people know him from the Berserker series of novels. I remember him more from the Book of Swords. So now we're going way back. Oh man, it's decades since I've read Fred Saberhagen. But if I remember correctly, the Book of Swords had a trilogy, which I really liked. I thought it was really, really well done. And then a second trilogy came out, and I wasn't as keen on those books, if I remember correctly. Anyway, I'll give you another great name from the past who I always enjoyed. As the Madman says, that's exactly the series that he had read. So I'm kind of curious, did you fall in the same category as I did, where the first trilogy was like, wow, this is really good, and then the second trilogy was like, that's kind of disappointing? Anyway, I'll throw out another name, another favorite of mine, Harry Harrison. Always liked Harry Harrison. Madman says Book of Lost Swords was the second series. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds like that would be the case. But yes, Harry Harrison always was a big fan. And he, I think my favorite Harry Harrison books are his Stainless Steel Rat stories. So although he did write some, serious science fiction, the Stainless Steel Rat were more kind of almost like James Bond in space kind of thing. Slippery Jim Degrees. Or Degriz. I've heard people point it out a couple different ways to pronounce it. Coco B says they've tried to read Dying Earth a few times, can't get into it. Who knows, maybe the review will change their mind about the books. I'll be very honest, I have listened to the audiobooks for The Dying Earth, and I have not listened to the last two. So off the top of my head, I think there's 4 or 5. And the first 2 or 3 are short stories of varying lengths. And like the first book, I'm kind of with you, Coco B. I'm sort of with you on that, where it was like some of the stories, others I liked. I think Vance hits his stride when he creates the character of Kugel. Isn't it Kugel? Cugel? Who's kind of a anti-hero. So, yes. But I would definitely recommend maybe checking out the audiobooks. Another author I had an opportunity to get my hands on some audiobooks is Clark Ashton Smith. And I had always wanted to check out Clark Ashton Smith, because I always heard people talk about his stories in the same vein as H.P. Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard. And pretty interesting. Although I have to admit, a critic one time, I'm paraphrasing, said something along the lines of that Smith would use a paragraph when a sentence will do. That is certainly the case. But there are a couple of pretty interesting, he's got some science fiction stories, which of course, these are from the 1930s. And he actually stopped writing speculative fiction or fantasy after H.P. Lovecraft died. He gave it up because he was pretty close, at least as far as corresponding. But he was pretty close with Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft. And when both of them were gone in a relatively short period of time, kind of took the wind out of his sails, I guess. I think he still continued to write poetry, though, if I remember correctly. All right. Anyway, just talking about some fiction here. So, yes, I'll be getting to take a peek at the Dying Earth box set. I believe it's 3 books. And I think it's saddle stitched. I think it's 3 books and a map is what it's composed of. And of course, it's built on Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now, what I don't know is if you have to have the Dungeon Crawl Classics core book, all 600 and odd pages of it. I think it's that long. Yeah, I know it's got at least 400 pages. To utilize it or not, I don't know. I don't know if the core rules are like built into the Dying Earth, or the Dying Earth is simply like a setting supplement, which is what I think it is. So we will get to check that out. So kind of cool. Kind of cool. We'll be taking a peek at some stuff from Goodman Games. Much appreciated. All right, we are going to be diving on into the Battle of White Plains from GMT Games in just a couple of moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Here's a food delicacy you'll surely enjoy. It's new, it's different. Hot Italian meatball sandwich, just like Mama made. You'll find them freshly made in a crisp Italian roll at our refreshment stand.
Pizza. Real Italian pizza. Crispy crust loaded with spicy tomato sauce. Mozzarella, Parmesan, Gigante, Provolone, Cheddar, Romano cheeses, and mushroom or pepperoni. Fresh ingredients, fresh baked. Pepe's Pizza at the concession stand now. It's ready when you are.
Black Label's premium quality is yours to enjoy at the popular price.
Carling's Black Label, Carling's Black Label beer. It's a premium brew at the popular price. Enjoy the best, take our advice. Get Carling's Black Label, Carling's Black Label beer.
I see you don't drink Wilkins instant coffee.
What about my future?
I hate to tell you, but you don't have a future.
When I grow up, I want to be a mommy.
You can play mommy right now with Ideal's Betsy Wetsy. Betsy Wetsy cries real tears. She drinks from her own bottle just like a real baby, and you'll love the soft touch of her baby pink skin. Of course, like all little babies, Betsy Wetsy wets and needs to be changed. And just think of all the fun you'll have giving Betsy Wetsy her bath and shampooing her rooted saran hair. Ask your mommy to get you Betsy Wetsy, and then you can be a mommy too. Betsy Wetsy by Ideal comes complete with layette in 4 sizes, priced from $5.95. You'll find Betsy Wetsy and lots of other wonderful Ideal toys at your favorite toy department now.
It's a wonderful toy. It's Ideal.
When I grow up, I want to be a mommy. I don't want a career or anything like that. I just want to be a mommy. Oh, how we see these commercials that just would absolutely not fly nowadays. I have to point out, though, as strange as this may sound, looking at that meatball sandwich and then the pizza, it's kind of funny. That meatball sandwich actually looked pretty decent. That meatball sandwich from what is essentially, I think it's supposed to be a drive-in, from the refreshment stand at the drive-in, looks a hell of a lot better than the meatball sandwich you'd get at Subway. Kevin says they never understood the appeal of having a doll pee. Yeah, I don't get it either. Von Moore and the Happy Wargamer have decided to swing on in and hang with the gang. Good to see you both. So as Kevin points out, you can tell Italian food was a novelty when that commercial was shared because the pronunciations. Oh, you mean the provolone? It's like, what? Yes, it's the provolone cheese. Alrighty, so tonight we are going to dive on in and take a first look at the Battle of White Plains from GMT Games. It's designed by Mark Miklos with art and graphic design provided by Charles Kibler, Roger B. McGowan, and Mark Simonich. This is the 10th entry in the Battles of the American Revolution series, and it is for 2 players, ages 14 and up. I'm going to guess plays in 2 hours or more, depending on the scenario. I think there are 3 scenarios, and it does carry an MSRP of $69. Flaming Heron says, nothing wrong with traditional gender roles. Problem is that people don't like being told what to do. Madman says, I need to make some meatball sandwiches sometime soon. I picked up some frozen meatballs that are actually pretty decent. I was very, very surprised. Should also mention, I want to say it's Michelangelo. They have a baked ziti, and it kind of stinks because Walmart carried it, and then Walmart stopped carrying it. But I was really surprised that it had meatballs in it, and those meatballs actually tasted like meatballs you would get in an Italian restaurant. I was shocked. Swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Battle of White Plains, Twilight of the New York Campaign, October 28th to 31st, 1776. I do believe I saw the Happy Wargamer pointed out they just played the first scenario for the Battle of White Plains last weekend, and Happy Wargamer saying it's a great game. All right, so let's get the shrink wrap off of this, and then we'll take a peek at the back. I'm not going to read everything from the back here. So 2 to 8 hours, there we go, depending on the scenario. So I hadn't even looked at the back of this. So yeah, I figured it was 2 hours or more. Battle of White Plains is volume 10 of the Battles of the American Revolution series. It is late October, 1776. 2 enormous armies face each other at White Plains, New York. 1,400... Jeez, that's an enormous army. 14,500 Americans confronting 15,400 British and Hessians, making this one of the largest concentrations of opposing troops during the war. Washington, desperate to salvage something from the otherwise disastrous defense of New York, occupies a strong position, which he has fortified with 2 concentric lines of fieldworks. Secure in these positions, he welcomes a frontal assault against his works. Can you, as General Howe, break through the American line to deliver a decisive blow and end the rebellion? Can you, as General Washington, hold your own on superior ground, hampered as you will be with some 6,700 militia of dubious quality? Madman says they do all the cooking. They found some good frozen meatballs, but tends to make his own. All right. Fleming Huron says, my mom never made meatballs, not even in spaghetti. Wow. I do all the cooking, too, I should point out. I'm going to open this up. So if I remember correctly, and I could be absolutely wrong, because the American Revolution is not the American conflict I know the most about. It's the American Civil War that I do. I consider myself to have quite a lot of knowledge about. But if I remember correctly, didn't Washington set up his defenses and he ignored a hill? Wasn't there a nearby hill that he thought, I don't have to worry about that? And then that came back to really bite him in this battle. So we have our series rule book, and then we have an exclusive rule book. And then it looks like we've got an errata. So we've got a few items here. So Flaming Heron says whenever they hear Hessians, or Hessians, they can't help but think of the Headless Horseman. All right, so here's the series rule book. One aspect of this series that I do like is the counter artwork. The counter artwork is really, really well done. So we've got our units. So we've got our leaders. With our combat units, we have strength and movement allowance as well as unit morale. I would have thought artillery would maybe have a range, but I guess not. So we've got our terminology. How to win. There are 3 victory levels: decisive, substantial, and marginal. So it says decisive conditions for decisive victory are described in each volume's exclusive rules. Looks like all 3 of them are going to be in there. So Kevin says possibly Washington had lots of things come back and bite him, if I remember correctly. So the madman is talking about Legend of Sleepy Hollow and how they love that story. And last Halloween, he did a Savage World session based upon Sleepy Hollow movie with Johnny Depp. And that was a pretty dark film. I was a little surprised by that. A film I like to recommend to people out there, although I have to point out there's a good deal of nudity in it, so you're warned. But I want to say it's called The Company of Wolves. It's a French movie. It is just unlike anything I had ever seen. And this movie's got to be at least 25 years old. So, but it is same kind of time period. And it is actually inspired by a true story. So I thought that was very interesting as well. So when there was a monster loose in rural France. So we got our initiative, stacking, zones of control, rifle fire, defensive artillery fire, close combat. We've got our tactics cards. Yay! So Madman says 1984 movie. I don't know. I don't know if it's that old. So yes, so there's 2 movies. One is like a horror movie, which has a very similar title. And then the other is this, it's really not necessarily a horror movie. It's almost kind of like an action movie, but it's really, really good. In fact, it was funny. I actually had it on my iPad, and this is a few years back, and I was flying back from delivering an RV to LA, and I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I put it on, and I forgot that there was like a bunch of nudity in it. No, it is not with Angela Lansbury. So, once we're done with the first look here, I'll see if I can track it down. All right, so that's our standard series rule book, but it's along the lines of that name. All right, so the Battle of White Plains depicts 4 critical days from the morning of October 28th to the evening of October 31st, 1776, during which the Continental Army under General George Washington confronted the British Army under Lieutenant General Sir William Howe in and around the village of White Plains in Westchester County, New York, some 20 miles north of New York City. The American Army had been in perpetual retreat since the Battle of Brooklyn Heights in August, but dug in here to protect a critical supply depot and to salvage honor, if not victory, in the otherwise disastrous New York campaign. The full campaign game covers all 4 days and spans 42 game turns. Players wishing a shorter game experience can play either the 4.5 turn historical scenario, the Battle for Chatterton Hill, or the 10.5 turn Grand Assault scenario. The latter is a hypothetical scenario in which players can model what might have plausibly happened if General Howe had attacked the main American lines at White Plains. All right, so here we have our game length. How to win. So it looks like the British have a decisive victory if they control a specific hex at the end of any game turn, signifying a breakthrough to the Hudson Highlands and the encirclement of the American Army. All right, so we've got some variations for the rules here. So we have special units. So we have the 6th Dutchess County Militia. This looks like this might be a bad thing. Right? It's like, it says this unit must pass a morale check, applying modifiers as normal each time it wishes to move during the movement phase. If it fails, it must retreat 1 hex. If unable to retreat, it is captured. So we've got Delaware Blues and 2nd Jaegers, or Jager, as some people like to pronounce it. We have General George Washington. So before the game begins, the American player must roll a die to determine Washington's combat modifier. 0 to 6, modifier of 0. 7 to 9, modifier of 1. No, that's kind of interesting. Amusettes. So here we have the historical scenario. I'm assuming we're going to have some designer notes in here, some historical notes as well. So here is the introductory scenario that the Happy Wargamer was mentioning that they had played. So this is the Battle for Chatterton Hill. Then our hypothetical scenario, Howe's Grand Assault. And then we have notes on opportunity cards. Here we got our design notes. Aha, here we go. One of the things I love about GMT Games is they'll normally pack in a lot of historical information about their games, and I always love that. So here the designer is sharing the history of the Battle of White Plains. So I think Chatterton Hill is the hill I was talking about that Washington did not fortify, did not occupy. Maybe I'm wrong. But I know that the fact that the American militia couldn't be relied upon very well especially early on in the war, actually came into play later on, where the Americans would intentionally route from the field to draw the British in. Wasn't that at Saratoga? Was that Cowpens? I'm trying to remember what battle that was, that they were able to trick the British into committing, and then all of a sudden they stopped running, turned around, and fought. All right, so then we've got our different units. So we have ruse de guerre templates. Then we got our sequence of play. So those are our 2 rule books. We got our errata, which looks like we've got a few items on here. It says references to tactics chits should instead be tactics cards. Yeah, it's just a misprint. That's no big deal. Something on the player aid card as well. I'm going to get those out of the way. All right, so next up, we have a couple of player aid cards. Yes, we certainly do. So we've got victory point schedule, opportunity cards, draw summary, artillery characteristics. There we go. There's our ranges for our artillery. I was going to say, they've got to be more than 1 hex. Scorched Earth die roll. There's Washington's combat modifier. Yeah, we were just talking about that. So, I was going to say, that movie I was talking about, you can, if anybody's floating around out there who wants to jump online, maybe hit Google. They could Google French film about monster terrorizing countryside or something like that. And it's supposed to take place, if I remember correctly, it's like the late 18th century. And you should be able to find it. So we got our terrain effects, our tactics matrix. So we've got a ranged fire, close combat table, and we've got a deployment reference for each hex. So as you can see, the full scenario has a lot of units starting out and a lot of hexes. All right, let's take a look at the counters. Amazingly enough, not a ton of counter sheets. Kind of surprised. All right, so this looks like this one is more informational. Like more informational counters here. It's like those are fortifications. It's like movement points, like a bonus, movement point bonus. Maybe that's for utilizing roads. As you can see, dual-sided here. And then we've got the redcoats on the left and the rebels on the right. So obviously British, Hessians, and Americans. I'm going to take a guess. They've got different stripes here. So I would think the different stripes are going to determine what's militia and what's regulars. That would just be my guess. And we'll get a little closer in so you can kind of get a peek at the art. Very nice. And dual-sided, so looks as if it's been a long time since I looked at a release from the Battles of the American Revolution series. But I think, if I remember right, they do have steps. So there is step reduction. So if something doesn't have anything printed on the back, it's just one step. So when that's eliminated, it is eliminated. So there are those counters there. So that's kind of cool. We don't have tons and tons of counters that you would need to keep track of. That's what always scares me off from like monster games. Not necessarily the fact that I don't really have time for those kind of games anymore, right? And that they just, some war games haven't really aged well. But one of the things that always kind of, I have to chuckle when I see like monster games. So we're talking about stuff that you would see like Con Sim World, that somebody set up a table for all, 6 days that Con Sim World goes on. And they're playing just one game. And it's the tweezers. The tweezers, when the tweezers come out. And holy cow. It's a huge board. Anyway, when the tweezers come out so they can move their huge stacks of counters, it's like, okay. So this board has 2 halves. Wow. Okay. So pretty nice looking here. Not too busy. So we have strength points. We have, here's the village of White Plains. Right over through here. Oh, wow, that's kind of cool because it even talks about like, okay, so here's Mrs. Adams' school. There's the doctor. Oakley's Tavern. Reverend John Smith. That's cool. I really like that. I don't see that too often in war games where they'll actually tell you what each of the buildings happen to be. Of course, the scale here is far smaller than you would see in a lot of war games. So here we've got Army morale. We're going to track our Army morale along the side here. We also have our terrain key. It's along the side as well. So we have the morale working its way down that track. So we have our Ruse de Guerre table, Terrytown transition box. So it says units may remain, move to Terrytown, or re-enter hexes T1 or T2. T1, T2. Got opportunity units. Okay, so this is the first half of the board. And of course, nice mounted board here. I know some folks out there don't really care for mounted boards. And they tend to be folks who live in areas that have really high humidity, which causes the game boards to warp. Which, yeah, that would suck. I'd be the first to tell you, yeah, that would really suck. All right, so here's our other half. Just trying to fold this out right. Okay. so I don't accidentally, I see how it's going to go. I was going to say, so I don't accidentally tear the board. Okay, so here we've got our turn track. Let's line this up here. So then we've got roads here. I would take a guess that the roads give you that 2 movement point bonus that we saw one of the counters. So here we have hourly turns going from October 28th to the 31st. And then what time do they end? 5 p.m.? Yeah, it looks like that's when the day ends, is at 5 p.m. And then we pick it up 7 o'clock in the morning. Looks like it was raining for a good amount of that time. All right, so here we've got more of the board. There's Chatterton Hill. And then here we've got captured units, eliminated units, Patriot Militia attrition table, our leader summaries. So we've got Washington, Lee, Putnam, Heath, Spencer, Sullivan, Sterling, McDougall, Wadsworth, Hazlitt, and Glover. And then for the Brits, we've got Howe, Clinton, Cornwallis, Percy, and Leslie, as well as Hessians De Hester, Roll, Von Donop, and Von Lossberg. Look at that. That's really cool. I like that. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. According to some historians, the Headless Horseman depicted in Washington Irving's short story was inspired by a real-life Hessian soldier who lost his head by cannon fire during this battle. That's I don't know. I'm goofy, but I just think that's kind of cool. This little blurb on the side of the board. All right, so that is the other half. Now we've got our tactics cards, and also want to mention we've got 2 10-sided dice, red and blue. Deja Vu says, looks interesting. Yeah, I got to be honest. I mean, if you're into war games at all, GMT is a go-to company. No doubt about it. And what I really, really love about GMT over the past couple of years, I've always really, really loved GMT. They treat reviewers really well. And something that I like is that over the past, especially like 2, maybe 3 years, they have really looked to expand out beyond games that are simply hex and counter war games. So we have seen a lot of various different games come out that don't look like your Avalon Hill SSI war games from the past. So here we've got some various different tactics cards. So these are for the Americans. Fighting withdrawal, redeploy, gallantry. This card may not be held. So when you get it, you must play it, I guess, in that turn. Turn flank, volley fire, stout defense. A most furious fire. Pennsylvania reinforcements. Connecticut reinforcements. So one aspect of the Battles of the Revolution series, American Revolution, I should say, is that you'll actually play these tactics. Stand fast, skirmish, refuse flank, withdraw, commit reserve, attack echelon, turn flank, and frontal assault. And then you actually will compare it to the card that your opponent plays. That's going to tell you, okay, so are you going to get a bonus as the attacker to your die roll? Are you going to get a bonus as the defender? So it's not just, okay, so I move these units and they're attacking this hex. There's more to it. It's more substantive, or substantial, I should say, than just taking a look at various different die roll modifiers and just taking it from there. So I do like that. I think it's very cool that you're going to actually play different maneuvers effectively. So then we've got our Brits, or I should say Brits and Hessians. So parade order. One slow, determined charge. Fraternization. Forced march. Divided loyalties. That's kind of cool. Play during friendly movement. May not be played during rain. Negate crossing penalty for one slope hexside on Purdy Hill for one stack of friendly units this turn. And then some of the cards actually do have a little bit of flavor text. Hessian hymns. Game ends. Washington withdraws to the Hudson Highlands. Game ends immediately. So there you go. And then, of course, here we've got their maneuvers. So we've got the two decks. We've got the cool insert that we always see with GMT Games releases. So we've got our 10-sided dice. We have our two big mounted boards to connect together to make the battlefield. That I get the feeling this would look pretty impressive on the game table. We've got 1.5 punch boards of counters, 2 player aids as the errata sheet goes flying off. And don't forget, we have the errata sheet. It's now behind me. So we've got the exclusive rule book, the series rule book, and that is what we find when we take everything from the Battle of White Plains outside the box. Let me take a look. Complexity, they have this as a 6. So I always say that GMT tends to kind of, I don't know, kind of underreports their complexity. So reality is it's probably about a 7 and very low solitaire suitability. I will do my best to try to get this to the table so that I can provide you with a review of the Battle of White Plains from GMT Games. Of course, should point out the fine folks over at GMT were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. And of course, that matters. At least in my opinion, it matters. All right, so let's swing back on over to the other camera. So what I'm going to do here, so I'm going to do something that I normally would not. I am going to take a peek and see if I can find that movie. So, Brotherhood of the Wolf. There we go. It's not the Company of Wolves. It's Brotherhood of the Wolf. And IMDb says, Brotherhood of the Wolf is all over the place. That is the perfect way to sum this up. It's a French Revolution / horror / martial arts epic with style to burn, and makes up for the gaping holes in its story with sheer energy and sensory assault. Check it out. There's a recommendation for that. Once again, there's a good amount of nudity in it. So, yeah, if you turn it on, you know, may not want to have the kids around, things like that. But so Madman says we'll have to check it out. Check out if it's streaming somewhere. That is something I don't know if it is or not. Somebody, I'm taking a look at Google here. Gizmodo says Brotherhood of the Wolf is still the greatest French historical epic martial arts monster movie ever made. Okay. But as I mentioned, it is actually based on a true story. So, funny enough, if you watch it, and no spoilers, and this came out 2001, so it's a little more than 20 years old. But it's kind of funny because the first time I watched it, I was like, holy, it's like, where did this movie come from? I'm like, wow. I enjoyed the hell out of it. And then the next time I watched it, which is years later, I realized that things I thought took place in the movie didn't. And how would I explain it without ruining anything? It's a monster movie, but maybe it's not a monster movie, I guess we'll say. So, but as far as if it's streaming anywhere, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. All right. So that is that. Okay, remember next week, it is the Witcher week here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. All 3 shows will be devoted to releases for the Witcher role-playing game from our Telsorian Games. So on Monday's show, we are going to take a look at A Witcher's Journal, as well as Lords and Lands, which, as I mentioned before, Flaming Here, it says Monica Bellucci, and is that how you pronounce her name? Is in that movie. Like, wow. Yeah, that is an attractive woman. I will say that. So the Madman says, looks like it's streaming on Amazon Prime. There you go. Nice. Anyway, as I was saying, I think this is the Game Master screen, and then it's got a little supplement inside. So we're going to take a look at both of these on Monday's show. Tuesday, we'll take a look at A Book of Tales, which I do believe there are some like scenarios. I think this is an adventure supplement. Why did I have such a hard time getting that out? So we've got that. And then A Tome of Chaos, which I believe is the like magic book. It's a magic supplement. Coco B mentions that the movie ends in a rip-roaring revenge sequence too. Spoilers, man. Spoilers. I'm just laughing. I just keep seeing that Flaming Huron comment where it's like, Monica Bellucci's in that movie, or however her name is pronounced. Like, wow. It's a pretty good movie. It's, I'm not recommending it because it's like, wow, there are a lot of attractive women in it or anything like that. It is actually a cool movie. I have actually watched it with a couple of women over the years who are into like action movies and stuff like that, and they loved it. So there's that. All righty then. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, if you do subscribe, don't forget, ding that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also let you know when I upload other original videos, which I've got quite a few, which will be hitting throughout the rest of the week and into the weekend, including my review of Pathfinder 2nd Edition Firebrands from Paizo Inc. So stay tuned for that. Once again, don't forget, next week, all week long, it is the Witcher week. So we should have some fun with that. All right, everybody who were watching live, thank you very much for tuning in. If you also took part in chat, thank you kindly, because you not only keep me company, but you keep each other company while I'm just blathering on about things. So that is much appreciated. But of course, I know not everyone has an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate each and every one of you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. Everybody enjoy the rest of the week. Have a great weekend. And of course, here's hoping you enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods as you watch this. And of course, I'll be back Monday, and I hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.
Oh, hey, you're still here. That's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.